So if we look at what's leadership, this is a basic definition. It's accomplishing change through the efforts of others. Now, obviously, you're putting some effort in. Some people are playing a catcher more than most. Putting your effort in and accomplishing change, making things happen. You're moving toward a goal, you're climbing a mountain, you're changing, you're doing something different. It's a process of social influence. So if you look at some of I saw some communication, I saw some teamwork, right? So there's a social piece that goes with it. Obviously, there's technical pieces that go with doing your job, but part of the leadership and motivating and inspiring isn't necessarily being a cheerleader and being rah-rah, right? But it's figuring out what inspires and motivates those people to come in and do their work, to answer their phone, to work overtime if needed, right? So figuring out how to maximize the efforts of others toward the achievement of a common goal. A leader's success often depends on how they do what they do, the way in which they go about making things happen. So leadership isn't just about a position. I mean, you can lead yourself. If we go into the academic part of it, you first have to look at yourself. And what you brought up was a concept of the emotional intelligence part, is realizing what your emotions are and then gauging your response. You can be angry and frustrated on the inside, but the response is what people react to, right? I have 4 kids. They are all out of the house. And when they call me, I take a deep breath because I know it's something happened or something that they need. Oh, Mom, remember that money you gave me for tuition? Well, I didn't exactly use it for that. Oh, really, son? Oh, tell me more, right? And I just take a deep breath. Because why aren't you yelling? I go, because nothing surprises me anymore, right? And then he's like, I go, but there'll be a consequence for this. By the way, did you think the bill wasn't going to be due? Just out of curiosity, just a little piece. Was it going to disappear, right? But how you gauge your response. 5 years ago, when I was in my 20s, things would happen. I would completely flip out, right? Now I'm older, I'm like, okay, so that water line just blew. What's our best response time? Who's impacted? What resources do we have available? How are we going to fix this as quick as possible? And then we're going to go back and we're going to debrief what happened. Why did this happen? So when I went to pay the next, I said, you will send me a screenshot that says this was successfully paid. Got it. I'm on it. And I need that in the next 30 minutes. Got it. I'm on it, right? So response, and then how do you learn from it and prevent it from happening again? All right, leadership's everyone's business. I talked about that, regardless of title or position. In your role today, can you accomplish change through the efforts of others? Think about it. Can you accomplish change through the efforts of others? I have to create a new policy right now for grad programs. I can't do it by myself, but I can create these policies and procedures by talking to the right people. So I'm not doing it alone, but I'm accomplishing change that will help us in the future so we don't run into problems we did the past 2 weeks, right? So regardless of title or position. Leaders influence all different directions. Have you ever influenced your boss? Sometimes I influence my boss and help her think it's her idea because it helps things happen, right? Hey, let's have a conversation. Oh, yeah. And sideways, coworkers. Influence coworkers. Yeah, this person's challenging today, but you know what? They got a lot going on in their life. Let's just kind of figure out how to make it easier for them and get the job done. And then obviously you influence down. Part of what I heard here in some of these words, setting direction, do you hear some of that? Forging a path, laying a foundation, inspiring others is figuring out what makes people tick. What inspires me and what inspires you are totally different things. So figuring out what inspires different people. I love to take on new projects. Achiever is my number one strength. So my boss would come to me and say, hey, you want a new project? I go, are you kidding me? I love it, right? Even though I have a million different things going on. And then I prioritize. So figuring out what inspires others. And then mobilize the efficient and the effective achievement of goals. Efficient is making sure you're doing it to the best ability that you can. And I call it streamlining process, is that continual improvement cycle. And then the effectiveness is making sure you're doing what you really need to do. Are we just doing something to be busy, or are we doing something that's making a difference, moving us toward the mission of our city? Leadership's about relationships. What does this mean? Get to know them on a personal level, which doesn't necessarily mean their blood type and the argument with their spouse, right? But getting to know what's important to them. Right? What is important? You know, sometimes it doesn't hurt to know that the kid's got a soccer tournament. Hey, how'd the tournament go? I knew Jody's son graduated, right? How was graduation this weekend, right? So knowing a little bit about them, enough to say, that I care. And the reason for this is when you get to know people a little bit better, they become a little bit more comfortable with you. And when they're a little bit more comfortable with you, they're more open to sharing what they really think about something, which may be a disagreement, which isn't bad, because conflict, we'll talk about conflict tomorrow, I think. It's not bad, it's how the conflict escalates and what happens within that conflict. So if I'm comfortable, I know you a little bit better, that new word again too, that vulnerability is there, and then I'm more likely to trust you. If I trust you, I'm more likely to be honest. If I'm honest with you, I'm more likely to say, you know what, I don't really agree with that direction. Let me share with you why. And then it's a two-way street. Okay, in my head, this person disagrees with me, I'm going to hear you out. That's how relationships help make good decisions in the workplace. Great leaders move us, they ignite our passion and inspire the best in us. I mean, this is a great quote, don't get me wrong. However, we don't always love everything about our job, but there are moments that you can identify, you know what, I know that Keith really likes this part. I'm going to make sure he has an opportunity to go this direction. I'm going to make sure that that's added into his work equation. Leadership versus management. You're familiar with the difference? Can be argued from time to time. Leadership is more visionary, it's more direction setting, it's more inspirational, looking at shaping the culture. Management is more specific, it's more about how you climb the ladder efficiently, it's organizing resources, it's determining a direction, it's kind of living in the present more so. Leadership is more about inspiration and pushing people toward the big picture. Are you doing both in your job? Odds are, yeah, right? And sometimes you're more geared toward management, and some days you have an opportunity to look at the bigger picture and focus on leadership. Good managers, to me, manage relationships just like a leader does. But this one, the management's more about climbing the ladder efficiently. Leadership is more about making sure the ladder is leaning against the right wall, headed to the right roof, per se. So the ultimate intersection between leadership and management is an appreciation for what motivates and causes individuals to behave the way they do, and the ability to draw the best out of them with a purpose in mind. Yeah, I heard that conversation around the room in different spots too, was you're going to have the negative person that can sink the ship. When we watch a video this afternoon, they tend to sink the ship. And in reality, eliminating a poor performer who brings the team down, if you eliminate that person, which isn't always easy, right? But then the productivity of your group can increase 30 to 50%. And I'm like, really? So Gallup does a lot of research in different organizations, because what happens, and I heard it back here, I think, doing an excellent job. I want to work with people who do a good job. That inspires me. People who are competent, who are motivated, who show up, who perform well, motivates me. And it makes me want to work up to that level. But if somebody else comes in and gets away with doing nothing, eventually that wears off on others, and the perception of the manager loses credibility because they allow that person to continue in that role. It's not easy, and nor do you want to get rid of someone, right? That's not the idea. The idea is to build people up, give them the best opportunities to perform well, equip them, establish trust. Those are all the things we desire. However, when people are permitted to bring a team down for a long period of time, it doesn't just cost you one employee, it costs you an entire team's level of performance. So, it's tricky, and it's situational, and it's not easy, other than to say, look, I need your help. I've noticed you're coming into this group. These are the behaviors I'm noticing, and I can't help but know that you've shown up better than this in the past. What's going on? That might not be your words exactly, right? Each culture has, I worked with maintenance at Wright Air Force Base. They said if we used that language, we would be beaten up. I go, use your own language, but you get the idea, right? You get the idea. So it's figuring out where people are, what makes them tick. It also builds on the whole concept of the relationship aspect of it as well.